What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Book Talk Audiobooks, the audiobook channel, the Book Talk audiobook channel. Welcome, you guys. What a year it has been for the community, the podcast. And I just want to take a little appreciation post, not post, but a little appreciation towards anybody who has listened to my podcast or has viewed my audiobook Book Talk Audiobooks YouTube channel as well, because I like to link them both together. So whenever I post an audiobook episode, I try to link my YouTube channel, and then whenever I post an audiobook like a video episode on my YouTube channel, I always link the Book Talk Audiobooks podcast on Spotify. So I just want to give a little appreciation to anybody who's ever listened to my episodes and who do genuinely enjoy reading the do-over with me and all that jazz. We have literally like 40 pages left in the book. I think about 40 pages left. Are we did we read chapter 19? I think we did. Yeah, no, we read chapter 19, right? Okay. Yeah, no, we did. Okay, so we're on 20, guys, and we literally have like 40 pages left of the book, which is wild. I'm I don't know what I'm gonna do after the book is over. I really don't. I might actually start reading Better Than the Movies because that one I do have the paper copy of, and I've been wanting to read it for such a long time. And I have the exclusive edition of it as well. So I might do that, but this book will forever have a special place in my heart as the first book that I started this channel with and the podcast with. So yeah. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started, and I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. Confession 20. In sixth grade, when I ding dong ditched Finn Parker across the street, I fell down his steps and broke my wrist. To this day, my parents think I broke it roller skating. After I got home, I finally let myself cry. I felt an achy emptiness where Nick had been, which was weird when I'd only ever known him on February 14th, but I felt like he somehow saw me, all of me, and understood me. None of it would ever make sense, but I felt a huge sense of loss over Nick. I heard my mom come home, and I did not want to deal with her anger. I was certain she probably would still be mad, especially since I'd hidden in my room last night, but I just didn't feel emotionally equipped to deal with any more conflict. I started on my homework. I didn't know what else to do with myself, and my stomach dropped when I heard her yell, Dinner! I took a deep breath and ran downstairs. I could smell the spaghetti and meatballs, my favorite meal, but something about the scent added to my balcony. It brought back memories of spaghetti at the old house when it was just my mom and my dad and me in the old yellow dining room. Then it made me think of meals in my dad's tiny apartment when it had just been the two of us, and it brought back sneaking memories of both of them feeding me spaghetti and introducing me to the new loves of their lives. I knew Nick had made me soft when spaghetti was making me sad. I sat down and I could feel my mom looking at me. I steeled myself for a lecture. Are you okay, Emilie? Todd, my mom's husband, was nice, a harmless salesman who always seemed like he had an opinion to share on everything, including things that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with me and my dad. So his question made me nervous. I'm fine. I looked down at my spaghetti and put my napkin on my lap. Why? You just look... He gestured toward my face with his fork. Like she was out too late the other night? Thanks, Mom. Like she's sad. Todd tilted his head and said it like it was extremely impossible. Like she's been crying. You sure you're okay, kid? I nodded. Something about the unexpected concern in his voice made me feel more shattered than I had already left. Now my mother tilted her head. Everything all right? I nodded again, but my vision blurred with my tears, my eyes too full to keep them all inside. Emilie? My mom sounded truly bewildered by the sight of my tears. Honey? The endearment did it. I crumbled into a sobbing mess at the kitchen table, blurring into my spaghetti meatballs while my baby brother, Potassium, stared at me like I'd lost it. You're kidding me, right? I'm here, aren't I? I took a sip of my Americano and said to Rox, my mother, the woman who gave away my guinea pig when I was 7 because I forgot to clean his cage, actually ungrounded me. Oh, I forgot about Trey. I sighed. R.I.P. to Trey, the guinea pig my mother gave to the Filkin bombs next door, who proceeded to immediately lose him in their backyard the very next day. So I don't get it. Rockstar took off her glasses and looked at them, wiping something off the lenses. She was one of those people who looked good in and out of classes. Her skin always looked perfect, whether she wore makeup or not, and she looked good in any hairstyle. Since I know she had braids, dreads, short hair, long hair, blonde hair, pink hair, and an afro, she looked good in them all. I ran a finger over my logo on the cup and wondered if perhaps it was time for me to change my hair too. All of a sudden, my unusual aesthetic felt wrong for me. Rock said, you actually deserve to be grounded this time. No offense. And now she's being lenient? Well, no. I sat back and felt a little shaky still. It's more like she decided to be a human mom. I had a bawling meltdown at dinner last night that started because of Nick, but when morphed into the latest situation with my parents, which is, I told her about my dad's promotion and my parents' fights. The good thing about my meltdown was that I was already so blubbery that I blurted out my honest feelings about who I wanted to live with. She asked, and that is? I groaned. Both of them? But for once, my mom actually listened. She hugged me, and then we called my dad on the speakerphone. I didn't know if ultimately it would change anything, but he promised to talk to Lisa and explore all possible options, and that mattered a lot. Rock said, I'm glad it happened then, because you need to tell them. It's about damn time. I swirled my drink in the cup and said, agreed. The pathetic part was that I wanted to tell Nick about it. He'd been so amazing when I told him about my parents when we were off the rooftop downtown that my heart thought he would appreciate it. I mean, he'd been empathetic tears when I'd cried about it, for God's sake. It was just a play date. I reminded myself, the memory still singing. Rox looked at her phone, probably a message from Trey, and said, did Chris tell you that Alex took him to dinner after they went shopping last night? No. Chris's dreamy love stories was the only thing getting me through all of this. Was it good? That boy called me at 1 a.m. and asked for an hour about Alex. It's the cutest thing I've ever seen. I watched over Rock's shoulder and at the barista yelled, Carl! for the 3rd time, and I said, I want them to never break up. He told me that Alex said that he didn't want to freak out, but he thought he was already in love with Chris. What? That brought my eyes back to hers. Seriously? Wow. She nodded and looked curious. Are you ever going to tell me what happened with Stark on Valentine's Day? I thought about it for a second. Basically, we had an amazing day together, and now he wants to pretend I don't exist. Rock shook her head. What a something. Yeah, but that's what makes it so interesting. He's not. And then I did what I promised myself I wasn't going to do. I sat there at our favorite Starbucks window table and told her everything. Not about the repeating days. I was pretty sure I could never tell anyone about those, but every little detail about what happened on the DONC. When I was done, I don't know what kind of reaction I expected, but I was met with her pitying face. She took a deep breath and said, he told you all day that he didn't want anything more than that day, and what do? You assume he's hurt or wounded, afraid to put himself out there? I love you, and I think he's a ginormous prick, but he called his shot, sweetie. Yeah, and you got your phone back, right? She gave me a look that was 100% a reality check. Were there any messages waiting from him? Did he even apologize for making you cry after school? My eyes itched again because, of course, I had checked the second my phone had been given back to me by my mother. No. She lifted her cup to her mouth and said, but I'm glad, now you know, so you can get on with it and not look back. Because she was an amazing friend, she slid right into listing off 15 reasons why he was not nearly good enough for me, followed by 10 amazing things she loved about me. I was still super bummed about Nick, but she made it marginally less awful. On Monday, I wore jeans, a t-shirt, Chuck Taylors, my glasses, and a messy bun. I was serious about the whole living for myself thing, and I didn't feel like making an effort. I didn't even know where my planner was. I breezed through the first couple of hours at school, and then before the third period, I turned the corner in the hallway and walked right into Lauren, Lally, and Nicole. How they were always together. Their gazes met mine, and I knew I was dead. You guys, I took a deep breath and blurted out, I'm sorry for being a prick last week. I shouldn't have freaked, but I felt bad for Issa when you were talking crap about her. Lally blinked and said, oh. Lauren said, were we talking crap on Lisa? And Nicole said, it's whatever. She gave me the brush off like I wasn't worth her time, but they didn't destroy me. I couldn't believe it. Then, on the way to my following class, I saw Josh. He spotted me from the other side of the commons and headed straight for me. I gasped, and the books in my hands said, yeah? Can you talk after school? What? I need to talk to you. Will you meet me after school? Please? Let me think about it. I walked away, wondering what he could possibly want to talk about. And I was still wondering about it when I got to chemistry. But then anxiety took over, and I swallowed down my nervous dread and went to my spot. Nick was already there, but we behaved the way we always had, like we didn't know each other. I felt him look over at me when I was going through my news feeds, but I just kept scrolling until my phone whined because I got a text from Josh. I glanced up to make sure Mr. Bong hadn't heard, but he wasn't even in the room. I just put it on vibrate and read the message. Josh, hi. I stared at it for a second. Me, hey. Josh, have you decided? Me, decided what? Josh, if you'll talk to me. Me, no. Josh, no you won't. Me, no, I haven't decided. Honestly, what do you want? Josh, ouch. Tell me you weren't texting the guy who cheated on you. I raised my eyes and Nick was looking at me. There was annoyance in his voice when he said, you're smarter than that. I wanted to go off on him, but then he'd think I was still into him. I calmly said, I'm sorry, but I don't think it's any of your business. I know it's not. He looked frustrated. He scratched his eyebrow and said, but I hate to see you trust a guy who's only going to cheat again. I will take that under advisement, thank you. My phone vibrated on the table at that moment, and I'd never been happier to ignore someone and look at my phone. I picked it up. Josh, I need to explain something. I could feel Nick's gaze on me as I started typing out a response. Me, let's just move past everything. You're forgiven, it's water under the bridge. Josh, seriously? Me, yeah. Are you doing this on purpose? I looked at him in the corner of my eyes. Doing what? Texting him? I shook my head. First of all, no. Believe it or not, I text with lots of people, and it has nothing to do with you. Second of all, I can't understand why you're inserting yourself in this situation. I just don't want you to see you get hurt. I looked at him square in the eyes. It felt like my heart skipped a beat when I said, you are the last person who could protect me from that. He swallowed. That's not fair. He was looking at me with those eyes, and it hurt to look at him at all. I glanced down on my phone and said, okay. Thankfully, Mr. Bong walked in, shutting down the chance for any more painfully awkward conversation. But I was bothered by our exchange for the rest of the class because he didn't have the right to be jealous when he didn't want me. Why would he even care if I was talking to Josh? I texted Josh, can you give me a ride home after school? Josh, you got it. When the class ended, I packed up and left as fast as I could. I needed to forget all about the Shirley one, even if it was hard to focus when the smell of his Irish Spring found its way to my olfactory senses and tormented me with the memories of the 7 minutes we were in love on the side of my grandma's house. I heard Chris's voice in the hall, and I turned around. There he was, walking my way, holding hands with Alex. Hey, your look? Chris raised his eyebrows and said, did you have to clean out a basement before school today? Alex pressed his lips together, too polite to laugh at Chris's snark. I said, new Emily didn't feel like glamming up today. New Emily doesn't look like she's ever heard of a glam, he replied. Why don't you leave me alone and figure out how to fix your own cowlick? He was obsessed with the one tiny imperfection in his thick, curly, gorgeous hair. Oh, God, help us, he teased. New Emily's evil. The new Emily, Alex said, grinning at me, looks adorable, just like your cowlick. Alex and Chris shared a glance that made me envious, so I rolled my eyes and said, you're giving me cavities with the sweet. Knock it off. I took a step in the other direction and then turned back and said, oh yeah, I don't need a ride home. "Okay," he said, and I knew he would text me next hour to see why. It only took 5 minutes. "Chris, who are you driving you home? Is it Sark?" "Me, Josh." "Oh my god, what in the actual..." "No idea. Said he wants to talk to me. Can't hurt to listen, right?" "Chris, I guess not. But don't let him back in." "Me. Trust me, I won't." After school, Josh was waiting for me at my locker. My heart didn't flutter when I saw him there. In fact, my first thought was, does he even own a pair of jeans? "Hey," I opened my locker. "Care if I stop by the office on the way out?" "Sure." I dropped to squat and grabbed my handbook out of the bottom of my locker, adding it to the already bulging backpack. It should only take a sec. I straightened, shut my locker, and we started walking towards the office. It should have felt like something, walking with him after the turmoil, but it really felt detached from the whole thing. "What do you want to do at the office?" he asked. "Well," I said, giving him a half smile, "I have to schedule my detention for bullying you." He gave his head a confused shake and said, "You're kidding, right?" "Nope. Apparently I was violated by a student bill of rights and did it over the intercom." I smiled at Mr. Bong as we passed, and he didn't smile back. "And then I have to pick up my deposit for a Northwestern summer program." He looked stunned. "Why?" "Well, for starters, I found out that the applications were scored incorrectly, and I didn't actually get accepted." He looked super stunned. "For real?" "For real." I gave a hey smile to a girl from my government class as she walked by. "But I'm actually kind of glad. After I thought about it for a while, I realized I'd really just like to chill and relax with summer." His eyebrows went down. "Relax?" I'm sure he couldn't fathom the sentiment, and I said, "I know, I can hardly believe it myself." Josh waited outside the office, and when I went in, things went fairly smoothly for what it was worth. I apologized to the principal and scheduled the days for my detention, which he was surprisingly cool about. Then I popped over to Mr. Kessler's office. He looked nervous to see me after my outburst the day before, but once I'd apologized and said I am no longer interested in joining the program, he turned into the guy who was once again wildly enthusiastic about my future plans. When I came out of the office, Josh was standing where I'd left him. "Thanks for waiting," I said, hitching up to my backpack. "Yeah," he replied, giving me a weird look, like he was trying to figure out something. He didn't say anything as we walked to his car, but as soon as he started it and buckled his seatbelt, he said, "So here's the thing, I was a little distracted looking at his car because the last time I'd been in here, I'd been wedged with him and Macy, and my boots had smelled like garbage. The reason I wanted to talk is because I owe a huge apology for Macy." Wow, that wasn't what I expected. No denial, no blame. "Really?" "I care about you, Em. You're seriously one of my favorite people, and I hate that I hurt you. She asked to go along for a coffee run, and I knew she liked me, and I was wrong to take her." I looked at his face and felt unfazed. "But you have to believe me that nothing happened." I thought about what he said, and the weird thing, I genuinely believed him. Even though I'd seen him kiss her on other cosmic days, I believed him that he hadn't on that day. And really, he wasn't the kind of guy who cheated. That being said, I still wanted him. His words probably wouldn't have mattered. If I still wanted him, his words probably wouldn't have mattered. I would have been too hurt to forgive him, like I'd been on the first Valentine's Day. But now, meh. He wasn't finished explaining, though. He said, "I don't expect you to forgive me, and I was totally in the wrong, and you have every right to hate me, but I just want you to know you're amazing, and I'm totally happy with you." I didn't really know what to say. "Sorry, I'm stunned you're being so nice after the intercom thing." He glanced over. "I mean, I didn't love that, but I probably had it coming." "Wow, son, you sound so mature." That made him look at me. I think, checking to make sure I was teasing. When he saw my grin, he smiled. We'll call it personal growth. So, I tucked my hair behind my ears as my brain filtered through information. "You said it's complicated. Are you going to ask Macy out now? Reconnect with her?" He crinkled his nose. "I doubt it." "What?" He was crinkling his nose about Macy? "I mean, it's none of my business, but why not?" He downshifted and glanced over at me. "Besides, the fact that I just got out of a relationship..." I gave him an eye roll. "Well," he said around his eye, and his eyes were back on the road, "I'm just not really into Macy anymore." That answer irritated me.
But you two have chemistry. I saw it more times than I wanted to. We have history. That's the pointless distinction. It's not, he swallowed. I mean, of course it is, but do you know what popped into my head when we were alone in the car? WWJD. Hilarious. He reached out and adjusted one of the heat vents. What popped into my head was the realization that you've never been like that with me. Like what? Buzzing. He shook his head and his eyes were staying on the road as he said, nervous. I've always known that you like me as a person, but I've never felt like you were into me. I squirmed in my little seat. What is this, couples therapy? Are you filing a complaint that I wasn't attentive enough so you had to go somewhere else? That's not at all what I'm saying. He turned onto my street and said, it was more that I had a moment where I wondered if you'd ever been into me at all. That's not fair, I said, even as I doubted. I'm not directing this at you, and my point is that I wondered when I would go back to class after the near kiss with Macy and try to figure out what the hell just happened, why we were even dating at all. I looked down at my lap, and I couldn't meet his eyes. The words, because you were on my checklist, hovered on my lips, but I held them back. Josh was the perfect boyfriend for me on paper. Smart, motivated, and charming. But I didn't realize until I watched him kiss Macy that paper didn't always translate. Josh was the guy that the girl I wanted to be should want. My throat felt tight as I thought about how wrong I'd been, how wrong I still was. If planning didn't go root out true love and fate didn't either, was it even a tangible thing one could hope for? We like each other so much. He cleared his throat and downshifted. We have since the beginning. We're like the perfect match, and we have a blast together, but can you honestly say you have feelings for me? I raised my eyes to my face, and he was giving me a patient smile. But then Nick's face popped into my head. The face that weakened my knees every time he looked at me, the boy I had instigated a downtown kiss with. That's what I thought. He looked at me and slowly shook his head, but it wasn't mean. It was a little bit sweet, like a gaze of fondness. I think the idea of us together was so good that we both might have forced it. I took in the fact that Josh knew how I was feeling before I did. So you never... I think you're hot, don't worry. Like always, he kind of understood the way my brain worked. I just think that maybe we're meant to be the best of friends. Stop saying things that make it sound like you're dumping me. Remember the intercom? Oh, I remember. He coughed and laughed and said, I'll be 95 years old at home and still remember you slamming me in the boards. That made me laugh. Is this weird that everything feels just as comfortable even though we're not a thing anymore? He shook his head. It feels right, I think. Can I torture you a little, though? I crossed my arms. Kind of like my own special goodbye to us. He slowed the car, tried miserably to parallel park on the street. I'm scared, but okay. I looked out the window, and I said, I got you the Coach wash band for Valentine's Day. If we hadn't broken up, you'd have a stunning chocolate leather band on your wrist. He lifted his hand off the shifter to cover his heart, as if I had mortally wounded him. You know how to deliver quite a parting blow. Right? I said, grinning at him as he smiled at me. I know this is absolutely unheard of in real life, but do you think we can still hang out? And not, just say it? He swallowed and said, because I really don't want to lose you. Let's play it by ear. I pulled out my phone and checked for messages. Nothing. But I could theoretically continue to kick your butt at Scrabble if you don't make me mad. Good. He turned into my driveway. Because if you desert me, who'll call me out on my contrarian stuff? Oh, I do enjoy doing that. He gave a little laugh. Thank you for hearing me out, by the way. Ditto. I opened the door. Thanks for the ride. Anytime. Seriously. I got out and slammed the door and was almost to the porch when he yelled, wait. I looked back and his window was down. He was waving me over. I dropped my bag and jogged to his window. I'm not gonna kiss you goodbye, Sutton. Ha ha. He put the car in reverse and looked at me intently. So, what's the deal with you and Nick Stark? I felt my face flush. Deal? When I was waiting for you to come out of the office, we had a little talk. Wait. What? You talked to Nick? His brown eyes were full of humor when he said, The second you went inside the office, he walked up to me. Honestly, he looked mad, and it's kind of tall, and he's kind of tall, so I was a bit intimidated. My lips were tingling, and I felt breathless. What did he say? He said, I don't really know you, Josh, and he totally said my name like he thinks I'm a douche. Well, I might have, I figured. He gave me a look and said, but then he goes, Emily's too good for you. If she takes you back, don't screw it up this time. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What? He said that? The thing is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the guy seems really into you. Josh rested his elbow on the window and said, so if you like him, I don't. I shook my head and felt sick to my stomach. My body was all aflutter, and the thought of Nick pinning over me or giving anything about me, but it wasn't enough. Thanks for telling me that. But Nick likes me enough he likes me enough to want me not with you, but not enough to actually do something about it. Oh, he looked surprised. Well, yeah, I said, trying to force my lips into a smile as my heart ached inside my chest. That made him get out of the car. Come here. Josh wrapped his arms around me and pulled me close. It wasn't a casual hug, but a tight, all-encompassing embrace, and it felt like a goodbye to us, to Josh and Emily. The smell of his familiar cologne comforted me, but in a friend way. You okay? He said into my ear, and I just nodded and swallowed. Somehow, over the course of many February 14th, one DONC and multiple days of fallout, everything had changed. I was emotional, yet again. By the time I got inside, as someone who rarely got fleazy, it was beginning to get ridiculous. I threw my keys on the table and just inside the door, but stopped short when I looked to my left and saw that my mom and Todd were already home. Hey, I slipped off my shoes. How come you're home already? I want to talk to you, my mom said. Sit down, Em. I went into the room and sat down on the love seat across from them. Time for an impromptu family meeting, Todd said. In a way. Your dad and I had lunch today, my mom said, steepling her fingers together like she was in a boardroom, not a living room, to discuss our situation. I glanced at Todd, and he gave me a reassuring close-mouthed smile. He is still taking the job in Hudson, but his company is allowing him to work remotely until August. That way you can finish your junior year and then decide if you want to move back with him or stay here. I blinked. Did she mean, after much discussion, we've decided that as long as your grades stay up and you stay out of trouble, you can make the call on whether you want to finish with your friends at Hazelwood or start over with your dad in Texas. She gave me a smile and said, we will respect your wishes. No hard feelings. Are you serious? My mom nodded, but her brow was wrinkled, like she was unsure about the whole niceness thing. I looked at Todd and he smiled. Oh, thank you! I got up and ran over to my mom, hugging her, even though we didn't really do that much often. I breathed in the Chanel and hairspray as I said, thank you so much. My mom smiled, and when I pulled back, she pushed my hair off my face. It was Todd's idea, and your dad was the one who had to renegotiate his new job. Still, I said, my heart nearly bursting with love for the confusing woman whom I both loved and was terrified of. I know it's hard for you to, Todd laughed and said, given? Yeah, she's growing. My mom smiled at him like he was her whole world, and for once it didn't make me mad. And then I hugged her too, feeling guilty for the thousands of unkind thoughts I've had about him over the years. Maybe he wasn't so bad after all. Oh my goodness, you guys. Okay, so that was Confession 20, and the last chapter is Confession 21. Like, you guys, and it's 20 pages. It's 20 pages. Oh! Should we do it? I think we should do it, you guys. It's the last chapter. I need to know what happens between Emily and Nick. I want to know why he was so, pushed, I want to know why he pushed her away. That, because he's obviously still in love with her, so I want to know why he did that. And I know that he's going to say some excuse and then they're going to live happily ever after, but I want to know the excuse. So, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for you guys. This is for you guys, and I'm going to also do at the end of chapter 21, I'm going to, alright, let's do this, Confession 21. I knocked down a mailbox with my car last month and didn't even stop. You guys are ridiculous. I pushed a pile of balloons into my locker before slamming it shut. This is horrifying. Horrifyingly fantastic! Chris laughed, and Rock straightened one of the streamers outside my locker. It was March 4th, my birthday, and instead of being subtle, they decorated my locker and filled it with balloons, which I had to admit was nice. I'd been bummed for the past couple of weeks, but now I was able to make it through an entire period of chemistry without looking at Nick's work once. I was a damn hero. Things were feeling better, so the celebration was like a little punctuation mark on my life's refresh. I had worn an adorable new black and white dotted dress that made me feel like Audrey Hepburn, and the ruffled cardigan I paired it with made me feel like a Taylor Swift as well. I've got to get to class, I said, pulling my bag over my shoulder. Meet you after school? You got it, said Chris, grinning at Rocks like they were hilarious before walking away with her. I had lit after that. Then, chemistry. I went straight to my stool, pulled out my book, opened it to the correct page, and then I immediately started scrolling on my phone, like I had done every day for the last couple of weeks. I just opened Instagram when Nick said, Emilie. I stopped scrolling but didn't look up. Yeah? Did you need a pen or something? Happy birthday. I raised my eyes and said, gee, thanks. But in that half second before I looked down at my phone again, my brain archived his serious blue eyes, clenched jaw, black hoodie, and the gravel in his deep voice. Is it? Please don't. Ethel blinked. You've said all you've needed to say, okay? We're good. He didn't say anything, but just swallowed and gave me a nod. Bong came in and started lecturing, and I forced myself to forget about Nick and think about how much fun I was going to have with Chris, Alex, Rox, and Trey after school. We were going downtown for my birthday dinner at Spaghetti Works, my favorite restaurant, followed by ice cream at Ted and Wally's. I couldn't wait. When class ended, I gathered my things and got out quickly, just in case Nick tried to make himself feel better again. The day dragged out slowly, but probably because I was beyond excited for it to end. But eventually, the final bell rang. Finally, I said, smiling, as I saw them waiting by my locker. Alex was quickly becoming part of our little friend group, mostly because he and Chris were inseparable, and I felt lucky that we had found him. Let's go, birthday girl! They let me select all the songs on the radio as we drove through the streets, which was my favorite thing in the world. We had a blast singing at the top of our lungs, but I swallowed hard when we got downtown, because my favorite place was now strained with memories of him. I looked out my window, and there was a bank building hovering above us with the vivid recollections of Nick doing the awful Cupid shuffle, giving me a piggyback ride, almost kissing me in the elevator, and racing me up the stairs. It'd been the best day. I forced myself to put all those events out of my head and focus on the fun with my friends. We rummaged through antique stores, vinyl shops, and expensive boutiques before finally going into the restaurant. I'm starving, I said, breathing deeply as my favorite smells in the world found their way to my nose. You're always starving when carbs are involved, Chris said, and he wasn't wrong. He actually attempted to eat healthy and had always been disgustingly assumed by my utter lack of caring. Have you ever had the chicken strips? Alex asked as we followed the hostess to the table. You're in Spaghetti Works, I said, rolling my eyes and making a face at him. Please do not embarrass me and order chicken. I wouldn't test her, Rox said, holding hands with Trey as I followed behind us. She's absolutely loyal to this place. Noted, Alex said. The hostess led us to the big table that overlooked the salad bar car. Chris said, I'm sorry, can we get a window seat? I looked at him and smiled, and he threw one right back at me. Chris and I used to play a game by the window seats where we'd guess the backstory of every person who walked by. I was kind of touched that he was still sentimental about it. No problem, she said, and gestured toward the table in the front of the big bay window that still overlooked the sidewalk. Thanks, I said, and we still sat down in the window table. We lost ourselves in laughter and conversation after that. Rox and Trey and Chris, and as it turned out, Alex was as well, were the funniest people I knew. There was nothing as fun as having multiple hours to just hang with them, without things like jobs, homework, and boyfriends getting in the way. They made fun of me, rightfully so, and when I finished my second helping of spaghetti before Alex had even finished his first, and I crackled when Rox and Chris got super into their backstory game. The couple walking the dog have been together for 15 years, but only married for one, Chris said. It's been their worst year yet, and they both know it's been ruined by those taking vows. Dark, I laughed. Right, said Alex. She finally caved because she could tell her annual refusals hurt him, Rox said, but now she's the one hurting. They both want it to end, but neither of them can work up the energy to say it. He works 60 hours a week to avoid going home. Trey added, actually, Chris said, that is pointing towards their dog. That's the dog is glued. That dog is their glue right now. Neither of them can bear the thought of giving up custody of Meatball. Yes, Meatball, said Chris, acknowledging Alex's addition with a nod of the head. Neither of them can bear losing Meatball, so they walk that beast together every night after dinner, each of them dreaming about being anywhere other than where they are. I took a sip of my soda and said, you just took the game and made it depressing. Fix it with this lady. We all looked out the window, and there was a tall woman in a jumpsuit and a beret as was walking by, talking into her phone. Chris said, this is Claire. She used to be a model, but quit her jet-setting lifestyle to come home and take care of her Uncle Billy, who has lost his memory in a microwave of an accident. Alex beamed getting into the game. Now he can talk about NASCAR and the woman from The View. We all started laughing. Buck said she takes care of that guy during the day, but at night she likes to put on her supermodel clothes and search the old market for men who might be interested in taking her swing dancing. Does that mean? Of course it means. Trey rolled his eyes and added, she dances with them and then they fall asleep. She kills them and then sells their organs on the black market. Brutal, but lucrative. I giggled and reached in Chris's garlic bed. Okay, Alex, you do this guy. Alex glanced at me and looked out the window. Everyone who knows this guy is a jerk because he never smiles. I glanced up from my bed and saw the guy in the black jacket walking by with a box under his arms. But he's actually a nice guy who was wrecked with regret for being a jerk to someone he truly cares about. I glanced up the window, and it was Nick. He had a perfect day with a perfect girl, Rock said. But his cynical heart refused to believe it could last, so he pushed her away. I looked at Rox, and I could barely find my voice and say, what are you doing? It wasn't until he cleaned out his truck and could still smell her perfume on his brother's jacket, Trey said, that he was almost suffocated by how much he missed her. What is this? I sniffled and blinked fast as Nick stopped walking and looked directly up at me. Alex continued as if I hadn't spoken. He knows he screwed up his chance, but he just wants to give her a present for her birthday. Then he'll go. I looked down on his face, handsome, and the only face in the world that made me want to cry. As I watched him, he swallowed and gave me those intense stare that I could feel from the top of my head and the tip of my toes. I shook my head and looked away from the window and into the faces of my friends. I don't think my heart can take this game anymore, Chris said. Just go hear him out. I took a deep breath, and then I stood, walked across the restaurant and over to the front door, throwing it open and stepping outside. I was about to walk in the direction of where we'd seen him through the window when I heard, I looked to my right, and there he was, standing behind the door, waiting for me. It wasn't fair how handsome he was. He was still wearing the black hoodie I hated, how the sight of him negated every little bit of fun I'd had with my friends. Looking at Nick just made me want to go home and cry. I crossed my arms and said, I'm trying to have dinner with my friends. What do you need, Nick? He gestured with his head for me to follow him outdoors to one of the seating tables that was vacant because it was too cold for anyone to eat outside. I rolled my eyes and walked behind him, irritated that he found some way managing to be bossing me on my birthday. Open it. He set the box on the table, looked at me with those eyes that had haunted me in my daydreams, and said, Please. He seemed so intense. His jaw was clenched, his eyes laser focused on me. I took a deep breath and told myself that I didn't know why my stomach was full of butterflies. I reached out and pulled the edge of the red ribbon that was tied into a perfect bow. But when I pulled the lid off the white box, I looked inside and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I glanced at him. The only word that came up was, How? He shrugged and put his hands on the box and pulled out the cake. The purple unicorn cake with the sparkling frosting, the one I had wanted on my 9th birthday. I couldn't believe my eyes as I lifted it all the way out and set it on the table. The shiny golden horn, the glittery unicorn, the sparkly purple frosting. It said happy birthday, the way I desperately wanted it to when I was in the 4th grade. But Nick had never seen the cake before. How on earth did you do this, Nick? He gave a little shrug of his shoulders. I got help. You're going to have to do better than that, I said, putting my shaky hands on my hips and trying to figure out this guy who might have just gotten me the most thoughtful gift I'd ever received. He said, Max knows the bakery owner. Max? Your grandma. My brain wasn't firing fast enough for me to keep up. I squinted at him and said, My grandma helped you? He nodded. As far as I'm aware, for the one time you met her, she asked you to get off her porch. I searched his face for an answer, but his mouth slid into a tiny smirk. The one that made him look pleased with himself, but not quite friendly. I said, Please explain yourself, Nick Stark. I went over to your grandma's and asked if she knew about the purple unicorn cake. His eyes moved all over my face, making my heart pound, and he said, As it turns out, she's been having a fling with the bakery owner for years, so she called him and asked him to make one for you. I blinked. My grandma's dating Old Man Miller? I don't know if it's technically dating since she said they just have sleepovers. Ew. But they're close. I stared at the cake, unable to slow down my thoughts. Nick went over to my grandma's house just to see if she knew about the cake. I managed to say, I can't believe you remember the cake. I remember everything about you, Em. The crack in his voice brought back tears to my face. I do. His voice was raspy when he said, Remember the song, the breathy sound of your voice after I kissed you, and the way you kissed my nose when you thought I was sad? A train whistle blew in the distance, and it sounded almost haunting in the cold darkness. I messed up, he said, and he stared down at me, and I've regretted it every minute since you walked away in the school parking lot. I swallowed, and my eyes traveled all over him, drinking in the one person I hadn't allowed myself to really look at since he'd broken my heart. I fell in love with you on Valentine's Day, Emilie, but I just need more than 7 minutes. You do? Warmth started sliding down my heart with every molecule inside of me. I wanted to be closer to him, but first I had to ask, what about everything you said after Valentine's Day, though? About the mirage? Nick lifted his hand, and he wanted to touch my face, but stopped himself and said, You were right about me being stupid because of Eric. I cringed. I didn't say that. You implied it when I was holding back because of him. And it's come to my attention since that's probably true. It has? Really? Yeah. Made a face like it's all dramatic and said, As it turns out, when your parents have a yard sale and you lose your ever-loving stuff because they were giving away your dead brother's baseball hat that day after the 1-year anniversary, you have issues. Oh no. I take a step toward him, reaching out my hand to touch the sleeve of his hoodie. That sucks. I'm sorry. It's okay, he cleared his throat and said, because believe it or not, I'm glad. I actually started seeing a therapist. I don't know, it's weird really, talking to a stranger, but it's also kind of relief. Nick, that's so great. Stop. He looked at me out of the corner of his eyes and said around a smirk, The last thing I want is the girl I'm obsessed with to tell me she's proud of me for going to therapy. I've got a mother for that, thank you. That made me laugh. I knew you were obsessed. Yes, Emilie Hornby, I'm here to tell you that I'm a little obsessed with you. With this. He raised his hands and cupped my face. With us. His eyes crinkled, and the corner of his mouth slid into a full-on smile that made me weak in my knees. Don't get all clingy on me now, Stark, I said, but the K sound got cut off, and his mouth covered mine. Electricity and liquid warmth drizzled through my body as Nick kissed me like only Nick could. Somewhere in the distance, I heard my friends clapping, but nothing could have pulled me away from the one person in the world who knew it took a sparkly purple unicorn cake to sweep me off my feet. Nick stayed for my celebration, holding my hand as we walked around the old market together after dinner. And when it was time to call it a night, he asked me quietly so no one could ever hear, Can I drive you home? Of course, I said yes. He looked over at me and held my hands in front of the truck's heater vent on the way home and said, Do you ever dress warm enough? I don't like to cover up a good outfit with a bulky coat, I said, grinning as he looked at me like I was a silly child. Well, here. he said, reaching out into the backseat as he drove. You can wear E's jacket again. It still smells like your perfume from the DONC. He held out his coat to me, and it was looking like an old friend. I didn't know this was your brother's coat. I took it gently, laid it over to my lap, running my hands over the fabric. That's because you acted like it belonged to you, he teased. True, I agreed, thinking about all the times I'd worn it and he didn't even know about. So many crashes on repeat, so many wearings of that jacket. Although I looked down at the army green coat. Now that I was thinking about it, I had worn it on the very first Valentine's Day, the one that started it all. Valentine's Day, the anniversary of his brother's death. But I never fell asleep in it until the DONC, last Valentine's Day. Dragging me out of my thoughts, Nick found a hand and interlaced it with his. He gave me a look that made butterflies go wild inside me, and then he said, by the way, I never thanked you for making me go along with your DONC day. I had a great time with you. Of course you did, I teased, which made him give me a funny grin. But the stuff in the afternoon, he looked over at me with superstitious eyes. You would have loved it. Yeah? I looked down at the jacket. Yeah, he said. I'm not going to act all trippy universe hippie, but swear to God, if you knew him, he would have thought it was the perfect day. Whoa. I leaned back against the seat and buried my hands in the pockets of the coat. Eric's idea of the perfect day, the day I forgot to give back the coat, was the day the time loop ended. Why are you smiling like that? I didn't even realize I was smiling. I glanced over at Nick and said, like what? He kind of grinned. He kind of laughed, his eyes crinkling in a happy way that I adored, and said, you're scary grinning. I'm not scary grinning. You seriously were. He shook his head and said through a big smile, like some creeper who likes watching televised parades and dressing cats in sweaters. He was quoting himself from one of the forgotten Valentine's Day, and he had no idea. I fell hard into a teasing laughter, the warm rumble of happiness, and it should have always been his sound, and I felt incredibly grateful. Thank you, Eric. I'm not a creeper, I scooted closer to him on that old truck's bench seat. I'm just a girl who's indecently happy at the moment. His eyes met mine, his grin mischievous, and he said, any girl willing to rip off Austin to express her happiness is totally my kind of creeper. And I was. I was absolutely Nick's sort of kind of creeper. I glanced down at my arm and smiled. I couldn't see the tattoo, the sweater, and the jacket, but I could feel it buzzing. His words were like an electrical current burned into my skin. Everything in my life had changed, but I had zero regrets. I had a marvelous time ruining everything. Guys, I'm gonna cry. I'm genuinely gonna cry. There's a playlist at the end, and then there's a Spotify link. Because I have the PDF, I can actually open it. So I'm gonna do that right now. But oh my gosh, I'm actually gonna cry. That was the most. That was the thing. This was like the best thing ever. Oh my god, the playlist is called the Do-Over Soundtrack. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Oh my god. And in the acknowledgements, she acknowledges Taylor Swift. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. You guys. You guys. I'm actually going to cry. I'm actually gonna cry. That was like the sweet. That was the sweetest thing I had ever. That was the sweetest thing I'd ever read. Like, genuinely, I usually read, like, this was a very cute and fluffy romance, and I haven't read a cute and fluffy romance in such a long time. Because, you know, like, I read The Inheritance Games, and The Inheritance Games is mostly mystery, and whenever there is romance, it's really, like, not cutthroat, but it's very intense, and it's very like, it's a lot, and it's great. I love it. It's great romance, but it's also a lot. It's being thrown at you all at once, and you know, like, this was more of a very, it was, I think it was a really good paced book, and it was really cute. It was really fluffy. There was no, you know, everything was just so genuine and authentic, and I'm gonna cry. That was so beautiful, and now I can't wait to read Better Than the Movies. But oh my gosh, you guys, that was but I still don't understand Nick's excuse. Was that it was his brother's death anniversary? I want to say that was his excuse, but I'm not even really sure. Oh my gosh! And at the end, it shows Emilie in the jacket and Nick comforting her. Oh my gosh, that is like the sweetest thing ever. And it literally ends in, I had a marvelous time ruining everything. I constantly have to take deep breaths because that was absolutely amazing in so many different ways, and I'm in shock. Anyway, the book is over. The book is over, you guys. Okay, I'm not gonna like cry. I'm not gonna cry while I'm recording, but that really warmed my heart, and it's one of like the best things I've ever read, to be honest. So yeah. I think our next book will be Better Than the Movies, continuing on the Lynn Painter cycle. That was the first ever Lynn Painter book I have read, so I am officially part of the Lynn Painter book community, I'd like to think. And yeah. And I think some of these episodes I was giving you guys progress on other books I've read. I don't know if that was this podcast, but I am currently reading Reckless by Lauren Roberts, and so it's like the Powerless series, Powerless trilogy. So like I said, I didn't read a lot of fluffy romances, and this was like the first really fluffy romance that I read since I've gone into book talk. And because, you know, you guys know how Powerless goes, it's enemies to lovers, right? It's really intense, and there's a lot of like, oh, like I hate you, but like I don't hate you, know. And then this was just like, I like you, I messed up, forgive me, I forgive you. And then like it was so cute. It was really cute, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And so yeah, I personally will not be recording the Powerless series, because there's already an audiobook for that, and the voices for that are thoroughly the most perfect voices ever, and I'm actually listening to that audiobook as well. But I don't know if I will be reading Better Than the Movies though, because I don't know, because there's already an audiobook for Better Than the Movies that I currently have been listening to too, right? And I think the do-over was just something that was so unique. So I don't know, and I want to stay unique, you know what I mean? But, you know, if you guys want me to, I will. I mean, I still have to figure out, if I'm not going to do that, then I need to figure out what other book that I'm going to do that's thoroughly unique to me. You know, and there's like a lot that goes into that, so, but like, let me know, like, thoroughly throw out suggestions, because I will get the PDF. I will get the PDF. So feel free to throw out suggestions, like, genuinely, please do. And I really hope you guys enjoyed that. I really hope you guys did, because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. So if you guys did, great. And thank you guys so much for following me on this journey. Because this was a journey. This was a journey. I can't thank you guys enough for this. It thoroughly, truly means so much to me. Like, you guys don't even know. And I will see you guys next time with another episode. I might not post for a bit, just because I don't know what book I'm going to read. So, just a little warning. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful, amazing day.